Humanscale, we pride ourselves on crafting products in-house that are built to last.
We're changing the entire industry by pioneering real, planet-positive sustainability at every stage of production.
From seating to monitor arms, sit-stand desks, and even tech tools, what we make is designed to look and perform as well after a decade of heavy use as it does on day one.
This starts with our commitment to diverting waste from landfills.
We guarantee this with the industry's best warranties. From stitching to polishing, our team ensures that every detail of what we make is backed up by humanized and perfected with human hands.
Chair by chair, we're reversing environmental damage and making delicate ecosystems safer for all life forms.
The most essential element of durability is quality. Ultimately, that's what all of our facilities are designed to support.
While we're proud to lead our industry, we're always innovating our manufacturing processes to become more sustainable and achieve more with less every day.
Hi, Jane. How are you? And we'll just dive into it.
Sounds great.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about yourself and your life and how you came to be a part of Humanscale.
Yeah, so my background is I was an industrial designer for quite a few years. And my last design job was at the in-house design studio at Humanscale. I was always very passionate about, making design choices that would be with the planet in mind, with the impacts that would in mind as well. And so when I was designing at Humanscale, had a lot of conversations and was quite vocal about that, and then was eventually asked to lead a sustainability project, which grew into the department. And now I run sustainability exclusively at Humanscale.
Okay. So what does that role entail? Being the
so I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer. And there's a lot of different aspects to it. Every day is quite different, but I mostly work with, I have a team as well. So we all work with our new product development, making sure that every new product meets our standards, working with our operations teams and our supply chains to make sure that how we're producing and how we're manufacturing really aligns with our values. And then working with our marketing and communications teams to make sure that all of the claims that we make and all of the things that we say line up with what's, with the details of what's happening. And I guess the last part is getting all of these things audited, so third party verified, and making sure that the statements that we make can really stand up.
Okay. So what is the ultimate sustainability goal for the company that you have in mind?
The next sustainability goal? Is that what the question was?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have goals every year, and we break them into the different impact categories. But one of the main things that we're focusing on next is circularity, and we'll see a lot more activity in that. It's a very complex topic, a very simple idea to start with. Just the idea of reusing things sounds so simple and easy, but the reason why it's not happening is because to make it happen in practice, there are a lot of details to work through, both culturally, people's attitudes and mind shifting, getting people to think about things differently. But then there's a lot of logistical kind of regulatory challenges to have material continue to cycle through and not be a linear economy, not support a linear economy, but start to transition to a circular economy.
Yeah. So as you said that you are an industrial designer by trade, so how has that career path made you prepared, how has it prepared you for the current role?
Yeah, that's a good question. It might seem like I'm doing very different things, but in fact, a lot of the thinking is very similar. In industrial design, and I think this is sometimes summarized as design thinking, it's really focused on understanding the fundamental challenge or the fundamental problem, and then addressing that. And sometimes the most obvious solutions are not the final answer when you really understand what you're going for. So the example that sometimes helps bring this to life is that like nobody wants a toaster. People want to have toast. Nobody wants to have a toaster. If you could get the toast without the toaster, nobody would be buying them, right? So that's that's kind of the idea that if you understand what you're really going for is toast, then you don't design a toaster the same way. You might have many other ideas of what it could be that is the solution to that problem. And so I think that years of practice in really understanding the essence of what's really needed, and then thinking of lots of different creative ways to meet that challenge, and then executing and having the tenacity to execute on those ideas, came from design, and is really, in some ways, I feel like I'm still designing, but not physical objects anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So how and when did the sustainability journey for Humanscale kick off? What was that spark that led to designing and creating sustainable objects?
Yeah, it's interesting. I get this question on my personal self as well as, and also for Humanscale. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment when things would have changed. I will say that our CEO and founder has been passionate about the outdoors and wildlife, for his whole life. He often, when he's going on vacation, he'll go to, the wilderness and those are the kind of places he likes to be. He's, talked about as a young person, spending time a lot in the woods and exploring. So I think he's always had a passion for this. We didn't, as a company, have a cohesive, centralized person leading this charge. So different departments kind of approached it differently. I think until I took that position, leading a project in sustainability, and then kind of grew that to leading a department. And so that, I would say, was kind of just an alignment of different interests at the time. So the values of the company and the values of what I was interested in, really wanting to push sustainability forward and not kind of continue to be sustainable in sort of the basic understanding of it, but really fundamentally understand what could we do to really move the needle. And when I started asking those questions and really pushing to say, hey, what can we really do to not just be better than average or better than we otherwise could be, but what do we really want to do? Where do we want to end up? We had around a year and a quarter worth of conversations to find out what does it mean for us. And where we landed was that doing less harm wasn't good enough. We thought, there's a lot of goals of companies make that say they're going to reduce harm maybe by a certain percentage at some point in the future, right? So our thought was, continuing to reduce harm is better than not doing anything, but it's still not going to lead us to the world we want to live in. So we thought, okay, we want to actually see if it's possible to manufacture, be a for-profit company, and leave the world better off because we're here. And I think we took that goal on in January or early of the year in 2014. So that would be 10 years ago. But it was really a solidifying of some of the thought process and a lot of the momentum beforehand, but it really solidified in January 2014 that we're going to try to see, can we actually leave the world better off because we're here?
Okay, so that leads me to my next question. People often think that sustainability is the opposite to profit, as opposed to fast fashion, that is the current trend. So how can you inspire others and your company to commit to sustainability and also the consumer to buy those things?
Yeah, and I think that sometimes if we zoom out a little bit, we realize that they're really very connected. It might be, I think often that point of view happens when you're thinking of this individual purchase or this particular quarter. When you zoom out and realize that in not very long, the costs of sustainability, of not being sustainable, it becomes very expensive to business to not be sustainable. I think of a company like Coca-Cola, they've got a lot of water projects of saving water, but of course, it makes perfect business sense, because if there's not abundant water available, they don't have it's really challenging for them to make their product. And that if we realize that for all of us as companies, it's, the less resources that we leave available, the harder we make it for ourselves in not very long in the future. And I think, years ago, decades ago, we had the luxury to say well, at some point in the future, this is going to become challenging. But we're now at the point where it is becoming challenging. So now it really becomes clear that if we are not looking at sustainability and the risks associated with it, we're going to pay for it with the business risks. because of not paying attention to these things. And some of the starting points of sustainability especially is a lot focused on efficiency, which that is kind of a benefit on both directions, like becoming more energy efficient. Circularity, as I talked through, is like reusing that material. It's much more efficient than extracting and processing new material. So sometimes it can be actually quite aligned in the very small, short term, like the energy bills going down, that's quite aligned. Shipping more efficiently is quite aligned with the bottom line, with the financial bottom line. But then you zoom out just a little bit and you realize that because they're so interconnected, it's the whether we're sustainable or not is really going to affect business, and is starting to affect business regularly now.
So how many products have been part of the company's sustainable journey, and what sort of innovative materials have you guys come up with so far?
So usually my approach is to prove concept and then try to scale up and eventually try to make it be 100%. So we're working towards these things. So for example, our products that are certified climate positive, we have, I think, 29 of them now. And last year that represented over 70% of the product that we sold. So it's not like a 29 out of 10,000. It's really a significant majority, and closing in on more and more all the time. We are very transparent about the material ingredients that materials that make up our products. We transparently share what's in them, and we've done that. Like last year, it was 83% of the products that we sold had materials labels to say exactly what are all the ingredients going into the products. For the materials, I think there are probably two. Well, it's interesting. We always have projects on the go to really push the boundaries and see if there are new innovative materials and how they could be used. One of the big ones that we looked at, that we launched recently, was ocean plastic, and really with a focus on fishing nets. They are the most harmful kind of ocean plastic, and they'll ghost fish for decades, possibly hundreds of years, and it's really amazing how much plastic is flowing into the ocean every year. So we're focusing. Our initial focus was on fishing nets, recapturing them back, and very initially from pulling them back out, and then of course quickly you start to say there's no reason to have this fishing community release the nets and then go back and get them. They start to bring them in directly and trade for the new nets. So we have systems in place to start to prevent material from going into the ocean as well. And that, I think, it's another version of circularity, and it really has been getting people to think differently about materials. So that material is the material that's flowing into the ocean is currently deemed waste, and that's not an inherent property of the material. That's just our attitudes towards it. That's just what we decide, that we don't want to use that material, as like people, human beings, decide that they don't want to use that material anymore. And if we can change people's minds and have them see value in that material, we can bring it back and have it flow back into the economy and start to be used again, as opposed to flowing into the oceans. So that was one of the things we were really excited about. And as we were on that journey, we connected with NextWave, and we're a founding partner of NextWave, the initiative to actually start to connect different manufacturers who are trying to collect ocean plastic and use it in their products. And we're all kind of coming from different industries. Some industries overlap, some not, but there's a lot of different industries represented, a lot of different kinds of plastic, and I think it's an exciting project to be a part of, to see what's possible and to see, can we actually, instead of seeing this as a problem and seeing that it's just an issue, that there's that much plastic out there, can we see it as a resource, that we start to pull it out and start to use it, and even also more importantly to start to prevent it from going into the ocean in the first place as well.
That is wonderful.
A few, yeah.
So my next question is, what is the next big thing for Humanscale, and can we expect more innovative materials and projects from you guys?
Yeah, I would expect so. So our next works, we always have a lot on the go and a lot in the works. And I would say that sustainability projects do take a fair bit of time, so they can be years long in development. So I don't know which ones are going to come to fruition next. But we are always working to remove toxic ingredients. So this year we'll have eliminated any added antimicrobials from the products. So we've been focusing kind of category by category to remove ingredients that are hazardous to human health. We also are always looking at new and innovative materials. So we've been exploring in that world a fair bit. And we have with our design team a lot of exploration happening in new materials that are coming out. And then also in the ocean plastic front, always looking for new suppliers, always working on different additions to different products. And working with NextWave, one of the focuses of NextWave is to try and get more manufacturers on board as well, using more material. So trying to support their work at the same time. So I would say, I can't say which project we're going to announce next. We did just not too long ago, maybe a week or two ago, announced that we were certified B Corp. So that was, again, even the audit process took over a year long, projects in the works. But it was really nice to be able to announce that came to fruition. So I would have to say there's always a lot of projects on the go. I can't really say which one we're going to be wrapping up next.
So it was my next question, that you guys got certified as a B corporation. How significant is that recognition?
Yeah, it was really exciting it was a very exciting accomplishment for us. It aligns really closely with our values. So as I mentioned, about 10 years ago, we aligned around, can we manufacture and be a for-profit business and be a force for good in the world? Have a net positive impact. When we measure all of our impacts in the world, like could the total amount be a positive impact? And B Corp, B Lab, and the organization is focused on trying to have business be a force for good. So philosophically, it aligned really closely. The audit process was quite extensive, so that was, I think, very good. And it was nice also to see that a lot of the initiatives and the work that we had done over the past 10 years really contributed to that recognition, and we were able to just document what we had been doing and show, here's what we are up to, as opposed to having to make any internal changes, or I can't think there were any internal changes that we actually made, but it was more a process of really being thoroughly evaluated. So that was, I think, was great. I think that it's really interesting to see that there's, as you mentioned, even the tension, or there's also an assumption that you're either interested in making a profit or you're going to be sustainable, and they're often pitted against each other. And I think the more and more we can start to see that they're not inherently misaligned, we can choose to see them as opposites and figure out kind of, evaluate them against each other. But there are a lot of ways in which they're aligned, in which that they support each other. And I think the more that we start to transition our thought process into like, how does business actually start to be a force for sustainability, a force for good in the world, for environmental and social improvement, I think that we'll all benefit. And I do think there's a lot of momentum behind business, so that it's a really powerful force if we can align it with sustainability and social impact.
Yeah. So can you tell me about a project that didn't work out as expected, and what did you learn from that? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, I'd say like every day we have, so let me just think. I tend, like my philosophy or my approach to my work is really one of tenacity. And I usually say that my project hasn't worked out yet. Okay. So that's how I think about it. And so, everything hasn't worked out yet until it does work out. And so there's always a challenge, and there's always many challenges to overcome. I'll use in the example of ocean plastic. Like, we had one of our chairs where we tried this particular kind of plastic in one of our chairs. We did many tests and many samples, and we weren't able to get it to work yet. So that one, we had several months of testing. And that was a couple of years ago. We've since gone back, and now we've got different components that we're testing with, and we're actually making those components in-house. So we were able to tweak some of the manufacturing differently, and we're now able to make those components from ocean plastic now, where we couldn't get our supplier to do it. And so that kind of comes full circle to things that are accomplished. But if you talked to me, a year and a half or 2 years ago, I would have said like that chair didn't work out, and now it hadn't worked out yet. I would say we're removing any. So in the building industry, there are still a lot of ingredients that are carcinogens, mutagens, reproductive toxins, very commonly used in the building industry. So we're voluntarily working hard to understand everything in our products and eliminate those. And so we are very, very close to having eliminated all of them. There are still some projects in the works that have not been completed yet so those are, to me, not yet successful. We're pushing very hard on circularity, but what we've been doing is pilots to understand how to make that happen. As we do the pilots, we learn the innumerable things that we didn't know in trying to implement circularity. Like there's just a lot of, it's really easy to talk about in theory and be excited about the idea of circularity. When you go to put it into practice, there's just, you can't possibly think of all the details that need to be addressed. So one by one, we're addressing them. I would say our pilot projects have been completed, but they were definitely learning curves. And so, I can't say they're successful or not successful because the intention was for us to learn, but they're not like something that's ready to be launched immediately afterwards. So that's kind of not come to fruition also yet either. We will be launching one version of a circularity business model probably in about a couple of months or so. So we'll kind of keep our eyes open for that. So we're ready to launch that. There's many learnings along the way where there's different opportunities that I think we'll also explore in the future. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I would say like on a regular basis, I deal with things not working out, and then I just kind of say, okay, they haven't worked out yet, and we're going to figure out the next steps to keep moving forward.
That is a great attitude. And do you believe greener ways can change the furniture industry? I mean, people used to cherish the heirloom furniture. Now it's all about fast fashion, modular things, and the idea of IKEA, basically. People are more into that rather than heirloom things. So.
Yeah, that's I do find that trend is happening. And I mean, I think folks almost think people almost go through a cycle where they go through one or two versions and then they're like, you know what, this is just not worth it. For example, you might have a chair that you're sitting in to do your work that was very inexpensive and you're like, well, I just need to sit down and work at a computer for a while. And then you pay for it with having backaches and neck aches, and you can never, hopefully you're able to get the right support to fix those issues. But if you do damage to your body, like sometimes you really pay for it for the rest of your life. And so I do find folks often sometimes start at that point and then realize that, hey, the upfront investment is small compared to the long-term investment of buying fast furniture and cycling it through, and then you have to buy it again and again and again, and actually it starts to add up and become more expensive. So I do think like people might, again, it comes down to that context of like short-term thinking versus just a little bit long-term thinking. People sometimes then realize that it's worth investing a little bit more. It's interesting also to see like some movements in the other directions. Like I've seen in the fashion world, there's fast fashion, but of course now there's like slow fashion and sort of the reaction to that, and folks that are making like a 25-year t-shirt and products that are intended to last, and they're starting to become more of a market for folks who are willing to invest in that and really want that. They want to have the item that they love and cherish and continue to cherish for years and years. So I kind of see there's a lot of change in the way people are thinking. I do think that people are starting to shift back the other way, and that the pendulum is maybe starting to shift the other way, at least a certain amount.
So that was all the questions. I just want to ask a couple of things. What is your favorite material to work with as a designer or as a sustainability officer? What is that material that you find amazing,
So I would rarely think about a material in isolation because, as I mentioned, usually when I'm designing, I would be thinking about the design challenge and what's going to solve that challenge, and everything is in, and even aesthetics would be considered part of the design challenge, because what's beautiful to me and appeals to me might not be the target audience. And so you might really, I'm not always the target audience of my own designs. I do obviously try to make them appealing to myself as well, but there could be difference if I'm aiming for an audience of like, preteens compared to, somebody in their, a different phase of life, for example, might have some different design aesthetic choices. But I think I'm going to mention, instead of a material, I'm going to mention a thought process that I really like. And that's biomimicry. And the idea is that the living world, that biology has really, this is not my idea, this is an idea that's been around for a while, and was very well described in the book Biomimicry. So that came out in the 90s. And it's a school of thought, basically. And the idea is that, life has been around for 3.8 billion years, and you can think about it as maybe iterating on some of the design challenges. And if you want to think about how do I make something with really high tensile strength, or how do I make something that's really impact resistant, all of these are challenges that in an engineering world you might be looking at to say, how do I do that? Where like in the natural world and the biological world, that may have been solved many, many different ways, and iterated over millions and millions of years to really refine it. So I just think that there are a lot of design solutions that are available to us if we're willing to kind of learn from nature and kind of become kind of students of nature and start to learn from what's possible. And even some of the systems thinking and the way that nature organizes itself, I think we can learn a little bit for how we set up our systems as well.
That's true. Okay, so my last question is, can you tell me what is your favorite chair design?
I sit in a smart chair, a Humanscale, Smart Ocean. So that was the first house chair with ocean plastic in it, which was, I think, really exciting. And it was exciting to have that chair come out and show that it was possible to use ocean plastic. At first, we were just trying to prove it to ourselves internally that it was possible. We did find some others in the industry followed, and started to use ocean plastic as well, which is awesome. And I would say one of the folks in the industry were really inspired by NextWave, which was great. So that was a great collaboration. And I would say also the Freedom Smart, like I like the mesh back. It fits many different shapes of backs, including mine. I have a very small back. And it's also really nice to be able to just move freely. It supports as you don't have to stop and think about, moving knobs and levers to support you when you lean back. You can just move spontaneously. So I find it lets me move a lot more throughout the day without even thinking about it, which is kind of how it should be. So I think that's my favorite chair.
Okay. That is wonderful. It was a great conversation, Jane.
Okay. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Throughout our facilities, we utilize the latest technologies to assist our manufacturing process. Now, this includes robots, which are programmed to coordinate orders, operate other machinery, and strengthen safety and efficiency at every stage of the product's journey. Of course, no advanced technology would be of much use without our biggest strength, and that's our people. From stitching to polishing, our team ensures that every detail of what we make is backed up by humanized and perfected with human hands. The most essential element of durability is quality. Ultimately, that's what all of our facilities are designed to support.